I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahawah, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rekah, Quadash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akyam who are pushing this truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth, and Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. And this is the brother Shabai from the GMS Denver camp. And this morning I'm going to go in on Ezekiel, the 19th chapter. Let's see here. So without further ado, I'll start at the top. Let me see, put this music, get this background going. Alright, it says, moreover, take thou up a lamentation for the princes of Israel, and say, what is thy mother? A lioness, she lay down among lions, she nourished her whelps among the young. Alright, and also obviously the whelp represents the sons of Israel, which are likened unto cubs or young lions, right? And she brought up one of her whelps, it became a young lion, and it learned to catch the prey, and it devoured men. Right, and this is when we were in our high status and in dominion, right? We were giants on the earth. Okay, you know, like when people talk about giants being in the earth, they don't understand. It's talking about a status. It's not talking about giant men like as in Goliath, right? So it says, and she brought up one of her whelps, it became a young lion, and it learned to catch the prey, it devoured men. The nations also heard of him. He was taken in their pit, and they brought him with the chains unto the land of Egypt. And this is our people, our men, going into captivity, going into slavery, right? And this is dealing with ancient Egypt. But because of the curses that we're under as the Israelites, we are still in captivity yet to this day, to this very day. All right. It says, now when she saw that she had waited and her hope was lost, then she took another of her whelps and made him a young lion, and he went up and down among the lions, and he became a young lion and learned to catch the prey and devoured men. So we raise up, but we go back into captivity as being the Israelites. And you also have, the Lion of Judah, which is Yahweh Shai. But the tribe of Judah is actually, one of the symbolic things that pertains to the tribe of Judah is a lion, okay? And he went up, verse 6, and he went up and down among the lions, and he became a young lion, and he learned to catch the prey and devoured men. Because again, we were in dominion, we were the giants on the earth. We were the ruling nation on the planet Earth. It was a short while, but because of our iniquity, because of our sin, because of our idolatry, the Most High put us in captivity under the heathen. And then see how it says we devoured men. While those roles changed when the heathen began to rule over us, and the heathen are still ruling over us. You have Esau, Edom ruling over us right now, and it's all allowed by Yahawah, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. It's not like the so-called white man is so great. The reason why we're in captivity under the so-called white man is because of our own iniquity, our own sins. So you read 2 Ezra 6 and 57, it says, "And now, O Yahawah B'Hashem Yahushai, behold, these heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us and devour us." You see? Matter of fact, let's get that word devour real quick. Okay. I'm going to go into the Blue Letter Bible here on my computer. This is it. It's the word is akal. Akal.
Strong's H 398. Achel. Achel.
Achel. Right? And then it just goes into to eat, to devour, to burn up, to feed, to consume, to destroy. You see? And that's us. We've been destroyed. Our people have been destroyed because of their sin and their iniquity and because that we've turned our back on Yahawah B'Hashem Yahushai. So we are in captivity because of our wickedness. Okay? Because of our unrighteousness. The Lord allows the Israelites, who are the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, to be devoured by these heathen. Again, if you're new, that word heathen, it goes into nation. So it's talking about all the nations that are outside of the Israelites, out of the tribes of Israel. Those nations have been allowed to devour us, which goes into, again, destroy, right? That's why our people don't know who they are. The majority of our people in our captivity to this day, they don't understand that they are the Israelites, the chosen people of Yahawah B'Hashem Yahushai, because they've been devoured by the heathen. But now you have a time where the curses are slowly transferring to the heathen, right? Deuteronomy 30:7. "And Yahawah thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee." Okay? So they persecute us, they devour us, they destroy us. But slowly these curses are falling upon our enemies, which Psalms 83 gives you a list of our enemies, all right? Which include these Edomites, the Moabites, Hamites, right? All these different nations outside the tribes of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel. And even 2/3 of our own people are enemies to the cross, or to Yahawashi, because they reject him. And that's why they're going to be ultimately devoured or destroyed. Okay? So let's read, where am I at? Verse 7. "And he knew their desolate places, and he laid waste their cities, and the land was desolate, and the fullness thereof, by the noise of his roaring." Okay? "Then the nations set against him on every side from the provinces, and spread their net over him. He was taken in their pit." Talking about the lion who was roaring. We were once a roaring, mighty, powerful nation. But now, we are devoured by these heathen. The Yahawah B'Hashem Yahushai allows that because it's our punishment. It's part of our punishment. Alright? We went into captivity multiple times throughout history. This is our last captivity because we know through the scriptures, through the Holy Spirit, Esau Edom is the last ruler, and then Jacob, which are the Israelites, he represents, when you just see Jacob in the Bible, it represents all the tribes of Israel. So you go to 2 Ezra 6 and 9. It says, for Esau is the end of the world, Esau the so-called white man, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Okay, well, I should have started that. Well, no, I guess that's the point. So yeah, Esau, so-called white man, is in the last heathen rulership is Esau Edom, the so-called white man. And then the beginning of the word that followeth is going to be the kingdom, which we're going to rule and be placed in our righteous, in our correct order. All right, Jacob is going to be that lion again. But right now, we still have to endure and have patience because we haven't been set up. We haven't been delivered from our captivities. Matter of fact, when you go into that word salvation in the scriptures, because it says that the elect are going to receive that salvation, it goes into delivering us out of the molestation of our enemies. All right, that's literally what that word salvation means. One of the definitions, anyway. So Ezekiel 19, it says, verse 9, and they put him inward in chains and brought him to the king of Babylon, brought him into holds, that his voice should no more be heard upon the mountains of Israel. Right. When you go into captivity, you can't sit there and roar and have that power like you once did. And that's what happened to us. We had the power during the time of King David, during the time of King Solomon. We were a mighty nation. All right. But the sins of our forefathers, the sins of all the iniquity that our nation has committed, has allowed us to go into these captivities and be under the heathen. And they devoured us, throughout history. It says, verse 10, thy mother is like a vine in thy blood, planted by the waters. She was fruitful and full of branches by reason of many waters. Right? And we used to rule, all of the Middle East, what they call, right? The Levant, many waters. We dwelt wherever there was water, we were ruling, okay? And she had strong rods for the scepters of them that bear rule, and her stature was exalted among the thick branches, and she appeared in her height with the multitude of her branches. And this is representing Israel is likened unto a beautiful woman, right? Zion tells you that in is it Jeremiah 6:2? I think it's Jeremiah 6:2. I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and delicate woman. So Zion is another word that represents Israel. All right. And the Most High, that's why when we read Ezekiel 19, it's talking about it's talking about Zion. It's talking about Israel. Ezekiel 9, right? It says thy mother, right? In verse 10, and then in 11 it says, and she had strong rods for the scepters of them that bear rule, and her stature was exalted among the thick branches, and she appeared in her height with the multitude of her branches. And see, so we, and branches are represent, different people, different, like men, like trees represent the men, right? I think it's in Mark, tell you that trees represent men. Basically, it tells you, I know it's in Mark, I think it's, okay, Mark 8. Show you that those branches represent people, trees. Okay, Mark 8:24. It says, and he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. You see that? Let's read 23. And he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up and he said, I see men as trees walking. And that's what the point is. The men are those branches. And those other, every man is likened unto a branch or a tree. That's why when we were in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, they hid among the trees. Where'd they hide? They hid among the people. Okay? So Ezekiel 19, verse 12. But she was plucked up in fury. She was cast down to the ground, and the east wind dried up her fruit. And her strong rods were broken and withered, and fire consumed them. All right, and because representing our people being, attacked, being under siege, being, Jerusalem, went into captivity, during, several times. But the heathen, played their part in destroying not only our people, but also our temple, our temples, Jerusalem, burning our towns and cities down. Remember Psalm 137, you had the Edomites, so-called white people, cheering on the destruction of Jerusalem, right? It says in Psalm 137:7, remember, O Yahawah, the children of Edom, in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. All right, and raise it means destroy it. So they were cheering on the destruction of Jerusalem. And they wanted it to be destroyed all the way to the foundation, right? Because the heathen are our enemies, which our people in this day and age, they don't understand we have enemies. They don't understand that the so-called white man is your enemy. They think the so-called white man is your friend because he gives you a job, or because he lets you be a CEO of his company or a manager of his company. And all of a sudden you forget he's your enemy. You see? Ezekiel 19. If we were the rulers of this world, we would be the owners and the CEOs and we'd be we would be ruling over the heathen, not being subjects under the heathen, And there's anomalies. There's, Israelites who own businesses and so forth, and and so on. But the thing is overall, we know that this is not our rest. This is not our dominion, okay? The kingdom is when we're going to be in dominion, okay? It says, verse 13, and now she is planted in the wilderness in a dry and thirsty ground, all right? And back in ancient Egypt, remember, we walked in the wilderness after the Exodus, right? When we left ancient Egypt. And now today in spiritual Egypt, America is that wilderness, okay? We've been planted here. Yeah, we live here. We live among the heathen, but we're not ruling over the heathen, all right? We're devoured mentally, spiritually, physically. Every way you look at it, our people are devoured to the point, again, they don't even understand that they're the Israelites. They don't consider, right? It tells you in Isaiah 1:3. No, 5. Oh, wait, no, it is 3. The ox knoweth his owner, the ass his master's crib, but Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider. And why do our people don't consider who they are? Because they've been devoured by the heathen, all right? You've been raised up in captivity. I have a saying, we like to say, you've been in Babylon too long, all right? If you sit here saying that the men of the Lord or the men in general cannot have more than one wife, guess what? You've been in Babylon too long. If you sit here saying that the heathen can receive salvation, guess what? You've been in Babylon too long. Where you want to include the heathen in your blessing, right? When you're calling on other gods and, serving and worshiping other gods that our forefathers never knew, well, guess what? You've been in Babylon too long. You see? Ezekiel 19 and 14. A fire is gone out of the rod of her branches, which had devoured her fruit. And what is our fruit? Her offspring, her our descendants. So that she hath no strong rod to be a scepter to rule. This is a lamentation, and shall be for a lamentation. And lamentation goes into mourning and crying, being sad. So if you're in your right mindset, you understand that we're in a time of mourning. The Israelites, the true men that are sincere and that are actually in their right mindset, we're not in a time of happiness and mirth and everything's not.
And now she is planted in the.
So lucky. But the point is we're in a time of mourning. This is not a time of celebration, and not a time of rejoicing. If you're in your right mindset, you understand what it is. You see your people, being devoured by the heathen daily. You see your people in their wrong mindset, thinking they're black people. They think they're Mexicans. They think they're Cubans. They think they're Brazilians, Venezuelans. You know what I'm saying? No, these are the Israelites. Remember, they don't consider who they are. Okay? And why is that? Because they've been devoured by the heathen. All right? So I'm going to go ahead and close out on that. I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahawah, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. And I always want to acknowledge all the brothers, all the Akyam who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. And shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. Shalom, shalom.